welcome to the Real Life Sports Show. This podcast is for sports fans and people playing sport. Anyone interested in sport, basically, whether that's watching it, playing it, or competing at any level. My name is Sam Adams. I'm known as the Real Life Coach. I'm a business owner and a life coach who works with sports professionals, whether that's athletes, coaches, and people in and around the sporting industry. And I help those people live more expansively, authentically, so that they can enhance their performance, whether that's playing their game or living their real life. My background is business, really. I've been in business for over 20 years in property, and I've mentored in that industry and coached. And that led me into life coaching, and then that led me into working with people in sport. Basically, because I'm passionate about sport. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about the hot topics in sport. We're going to talk about the real life behind the scenes, what it takes to be a professional athlete. We're going to have the latest news. We're going to have some discussions. I'm also going to share with you my experiences of coaching elite athletes. We will have some amazing guests, and they will be talking about the glamour and the glory, the medals, the achievements, the titles. But we'll also go behind the scenes to find out what it really takes, the grit and the grind, what it takes to excel as an elite athlete. For yourself, the listener, what I promise you is that you're going to get some great takeaways and insight from these podcast episodes. Whether you're looking to achieve or improve your mindset, it'll help you with your personal development, and it will give you that extra bit of insight and what it takes to be a high achiever. Also, I'd love for you to do me a big favour when you get to the end of this episode, or any episode, is leave a review. Leave me a 5-star review and I will be eternally grateful. So here we go, the Real Life Sports Show. Yes, welcome everybody. Welcome. So this is part of the launch series for my new podcast, The Real Life Sports Show. And today I am really honoured and delighted to say that I am joined by the one and the only Colonel Dame Kelly Holmes. And I have been trying to get this woman on my podcast for bloody months. And I've nagged the life out of her. And finally, we've made it happen. Good afternoon, Kelly.
Good afternoon, Sam. Yes, we finally got it on. So
I know I've been desperate to have you on my podcast. So today is a very good day for me. And we've probably got about 40 minutes, which is not enough to ask you all of the questions that I've got written down. So we'll do a little highlight reel perhaps. But anyway, I just want to thank you for giving up your time and doing it first and foremost. And I always, whenever I introduce you, because we do a clubhouse room together, I always forget the Colonel bit. But that actually, I heard you on the radio on Saturday, I think, with Claude. And the Colonel Dame, I don't think there are any other Colonel Dames in the world. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, no, there isn't any. So that's like a unique title to have. Titles are getting a little bit sort of long now. You know, like Colonel, Dame, Kelly Holmes, MBE, military.
Stop being so bloody awesome, and then we can do away with them.
It's a great it's a really great title. I was really honoured to have it. You know, it's a title that got signed off by Her Majesty the Queen, changing army policy, because basically I was given the role attached to a regular working unit, and most people go with reservists that get honorary colonel. So It was something new that the army had never done before, which I was proud of.
Wow. And did they create that just especially because of you?
Yeah, they created it because I'd actually recorded a documentary called Women at War, and it was celebrating 100 years of women serving in the military. And during that documentary, I was down at Bovington, which is my unit, where the sort of the defence frontline sort of tactics are, including tanks. So during that period of time, they asked me if I'd like to get back attached. And I was kind of, let's do it.
Oh, that's amazing. I grew up in Dorset, and we used to live in a place called, I don't know if you know, have you heard of Warmwell and Crossways? Small little areas.
No, I haven't, but Dorset's beautiful, isn't it? Sherborne and places down to.
It is. I mean, Bovington was probably 15 minutes away from where I used to live. So I used to always run through there, Bovington. I could see the tanks going across the training fields all across there. So I know that area really, really well. Used to ride my bike across the back there as well. So yeah, we grew up around there. So I know that area really, really well. I guess it'd be really nice to actually talk a little bit about your army career, but this is about sport, this podcast. And before we came live, we were talking about doing a series. So this is me holding you accountable to admitting that you'll come back and maybe talk more about the military stuff if we don't get to cover it today, but hopefully we will. So obviously we want to talk about your athletics and growing up and how you first got into sport, because I know you were raised in Kent. And I think you first initially started athletics at Tunbridge, but was there a reason that you sort of got you to the athletics track in the beginning? What was that all around?
Yeah, I think it was about having something that as a young person you kind of found your identity with, and it was my PE teacher that encouraged me almost to kind of take up athletics as a sport, because I used to beat girls that were a couple of years older than me on sports day, and then encouraged to do this cross country race. Didn't want to do that, but after sort of coming second in that cross country race, it was sort of the pit in the stomach. Then she called my mum to take me down to Tunbridge Athletics Club, where I met my first coach, Dave Arnold. And I suppose in terms of young person, athletics, it's a hard sport, athletics, because you think it's a very individual sport. Even though you might train with people or have your coach, you are really accountable for turning up, doing what you're meant to do on your schedule if you're not with your coach, and rather than a team sport effort where you could have a bad day and kind of you'll just go along and then be hyped up during the process, whereas that's not what it's like at athletics. So it's quite an isolating sport. But as a young person, I think just because I was good at it, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, yeah, generally we do enjoy the things that we're good at, right? I mean, I did athletics as a kid. That was obviously not to your level, but I was all right. But I think it was probably as a kid for me, like you, I wasn't good academically. And sport was the one thing that I was good at. So I just wanted to do it more because people liked me there.
Well, I think you do, I think young people, it's really important for young people to get sport in their lives anyway. It gives you always those real life skill qualities of, just interaction and communicating effectively and learning to fail, all the things that, realistically you go through in life. And I think sport has the ability to do that. But I think as a young person, we all need to find our feet somewhere. And those that are academic, kind of, they just like going to school and they just pick it up. And those that aren't, I think, can lose out a lot in life generally because their talents aren't fulfilled. And so I think I was very lucky that I had a PE teacher that was more than a PE teacher, almost, the word was never around then, but mentoring, somebody that was guiding me to be better and not just telling me to do something because I was a naughty kid,
Yeah.
So I always remember her for that. And she's one of my friends now. So
I was just going to say, are you still connected? But obviously you are, which is amazing. And without them, who knows where, we may not have had this amazing Olympic champion that we all want to own and have as our own.
But I think that's right in any form of life, especially in sport. If you're talking to lots of sports people, but a lot of sports people will start off for an influence of someone or an opportunity to do something, and then kind of somewhere within them have got to have their, kind of mindset to keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. You said about being the naughty kid. Was you a naughty kid?
I was the one sitting outside the class all the time. Yeah, well,
that question.
Oh, your head's going all woo-woo, you see something shiny. It's like you're zoning out of the French teacher talking French to you and you have no idea what she's saying. I mean, let's face it. So yeah, I was the one outside all the time. But I went to school purely for sport and my three friends, Kerry, Lara and Kim, who are my best friends to this day. I went to school purely for a purpose, that was to get through it. To do sport and PE, which I loved. And I was at a time when it was the early days of doing sport as a career, like doing a PE exam or something, like one of the kind of sports science or something. And it was the first my year was the first time that it introduced, what was it now? Not sports science, but I don't know. It's called something. No. Anyway, but I was the only person that put my name on it. And so they didn't run the course. And I was really disappointed because I wanted to go in the army. We know we're not talking about army, but it was a link through sport and learning about teaching sport that I wanted to do, but didn't clearly.
Yeah. Was there other, because, you know, having these conversations, not only for the podcast, but obviously for other people that I talk to, there is always more than one sport generally that they're good at. Was that the same for you? Were you into other sports as well before kind of settled on athletics?
No, not until I went into the army, and then because athletics wasn't a priority to me, and then I did judo as army judo champion and army volleyball player. So it wasn't until later in life that I kind of did other things. As an athlete, I mean, as a young person, be honest, athletics was literally my life. I would bike to school 3 miles because we didn't have a bus, go to school, bike from school to athletics track, go from the athletics track back home, and that would be it. And by the time I was 12, I was competing, and I was competing, you know, through a summer season every weekend, training 3, 4, 5 times a week. You know, that was it. So that's literally what I did up until just before I went in the army.
No, well, amazing. Did you see it then as like, were you already thinking at that young age that, you know, actually if I dedicate myself to this, I can be something, I'll make something of myself? Or was it just, yeah, I love this, I'm doing it, and I'm a kid at 12 years old and I'm not giving it a lot of thought?
Yeah, I think at 12 and 13, it was more the fact that I was good. You know, I was English schools champion 6 months after starting athletics. I won the 1500 meters in Plymouth. So obviously cemented the fact that I was quite good. And then, like most things, why do you carry on? Because you're inspired by something. So for me, it was definitely the Olympic movement. I watched Sebastian Coe and 1500 meters, and I was a 1500 meter runner. And again, if you see someone, it doesn't matter whether it's a man or woman, you just see something that you love and passionate about, you see someone achieve, it becomes like, you know, it's kind of, I want to do it, you know, especially when you're young, you're impressionable. I think role models are great when you're young.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
having a British person win the event that I used to train as a kid, and I'm assuming that's what happened, you know, with me winning, other young people think, you know, that's what I want to be. Exactly the same as when I was young.
Yeah. I remember, you know, obviously, like I said, I'm older than you. I don't know why I keep harping on about that. I need to stop that.
Keep harping on.
I know what you're like with your age. I've given up with that. I just say I'm 53, sod it. Oh God, I forgot what I was going to say now. What was it? Oh, Seb Coe. Yeah, I was massively like Seb Coe and Steve Ovett. I love that rivalry. I always remember watching, you know, Seb do really well. My sister, I think, fancied Seb back then, so she was always watching him for that. But that whole era, that was a real. I found that maybe it's, I don't know. I felt it was like a really golden time for middle distance running. You know, for the men anyway.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, you think about how powerful men's middle distance was as a whole, you know. We talk about Ovett and Coe, but then you've got Steve Cram, Steve Crabb, who's another guy, Peter Elliott, you know, there was tons of them. In fact, any one of those probably could have been one of the world's best at the time. So it was a massive era.
Yeah. No, it was a great time. So obviously, like, despite your achievements in athletics, which were really, really something, even, you know, at such a young age to do so well, you still sort of pursued your ambition to join the army. Where did that ambition come from about the army? When did you first have that idea? Because I know when I was at school at that age, I just wanted to get out of school. I just wasn't a whole lot of ambition for me.
Yeah, I wanted to go in the army since I was 14 because we had the careers officers come into our school. And I think I was inspired by the physical side of the army. So the physical training instructors, you know, watching soldiers sort of under scramble nets and over 12-foot walls and swinging over ropes was quite appealing. Then literally from 14 to 17, I tried to go and sign up, but couldn't. I was too young. Anyway, but you know, that was a big thing. But actually from the sporting front, you know, I took a big dive into my career just because by the time I was 17, I won my last English schools. I won mini youth Olympic gold medal.
Oh, wow.
When I was 17, and then pretty much kind of give up that thought of, you know, progressing to go in the army. So it was just something I wanted to do, have a career. meet people, become somebody.
So that's interesting that you went off when you had that achievement with the did you say mini
Youth Olympics? So
Youth Olympics.
Kind of Youth Olympic Games. Yeah. So
where was that held?
In Papendale, Holland.
Oh wow! And you won that, but you still thought, "No, I'm going in the army."
Yeah, because I think, again, leaving school with nothing, it kind of, I still wanted to, I was still ambitious as a young person, even though I wasn't, kind of academically good. I still had it within me to be ambitious and to try and do things. So, I'd had a job. I was actually a nursing assistant before I went in the army, and then I went into the army, and that was more fact of having a career and, structure, be financially kind of independent from family, just lots of reasons really why I went in.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I think it's absolutely, for me, it's super important in terms of having your identity not wrapped up in just one particular thing. I was just talking to Katie Chapman, who's England and Chelsea footballer, and she never ever saw herself as just a footballer. She had all of those other bits to her life, and she was very much knew who she was. She's excelled as a footballer nonetheless.
Yeah.
But it didn't all consume her. She did have other things that she wanted to do, and I think that's really, really important.
I think there becomes a balance at some stage though, because I think early days of getting back into international athletics while I was in the army, it was great that I had my army career to fall back on, because it wasn't all so consuming and all sort of just focused on this one thing. And then if you got injured, it wasn't all just about that kind of injury. You still had other things to do, and especially in the army, you've got people around you all the time, you've got responsibilities. But then I personally think if you really want to be literally the best at something, then it has to be all consuming.
Do you? I was gonna ask you about that as one of my questions, because obviously that's stuff that I talk about a lot and deal with, and whether you feel like you can do it without that. And that's interesting that you think that you can reach the top of your game. I haven't done a study on it. Maybe I should. We can find out statistically, who makes it and who doesn't make it. But I do know, because obviously I know you, that you believe that the passion and the drive absolutely has to be there in order to make it. But I think, like I say, athletics is very individual, right? 800, 1500, it's just you out on the track against the other 8 or however many people. It is very individual. I think it has to be, maybe there's a different mindset that comes with that, with athletics.
Yeah, I do think there is slightly, because as I say, in a team sport, an element, you're not in control of everybody else. So you can only be in control of your performance, and your performance could be absolutely amazing, yet you lose every game. Yeah. There has to be some type of thing where you're demoralized at one point and then you're hyped at the other when the team's doing brilliant, and that must be quite hard. So then having something else to have your mind go in when you get the frustration that your team's not doing well as a whole, because you become one, must be good to have a distraction. But I think in athletics, whilst it was really good for me to have a distraction of a job when I was getting back into international athletics, I did find that was brilliant. But there comes a time when, if you want to reach, like literally as I did, to be Olympic champion, these Olympic champions aren't all running around in boots and lightweights and your weapon and jumping off of big, high, walls and going up scramble necks with a chance of injuring themselves. You get injured enough doing sport, and let alone all the things that I used to have to do in the army. So there has to become a fine line, because then you get finely tuned. So, but the transition from doing everything physically in the army to just doing athletics actually caused me problems, because I became weaker. So there were some brilliant pros of being in the army, definitely for the first few years when I won Commonwealth Games gold when I was 24, 2 weeks later European silver medalist, 1 year later double world medalist. Then I go to an Olympic Games and get a stress fracture, because I'm now juggling my army career and my athletics career, no rest, no sort of transition between one and the other, 1 minute in combat boots and the next minute in spikes. At that Olympic level, that's where it fell. Once I was getting better as sport, it had to be about sport.
Yeah. What year was that you So you stepped away and just solely concentrated on your athletics?
Well, I was full-time soldier still up until I was 27. So I'd got 4 medals while serving full-time in the army, and come fourth at Atlanta when I was 26, getting pipped onto the line by a tenth of a second. It sucks.
I was just about to say, you're not bitter. I can tell you're not bitter.
But then, there's a mindset game then, isn't it? Because what do? You either think everything's so bad and you come fourth and it's hell and you just mope about it, or you go, hold on a minute, I come fourth in the world with a stress fracture in the Olympic final. It's an attitude change, and that's what sports people have to have.
And you use that as fuel, I'm assuming, after Atlanta.
I used it as a tool to pick myself back up and realize the power of what you actually have, because it's so easy we all revert to a negative of perceived failure, and it becomes such a debilitating kind of thought that it takes you a long time to get over it, and that's why people are on a back foot. Whereas as soon as you change your mind to it becoming a positive effect on you, what did you learn from that process? Because perceived failure is based on your perception of what you wanted to be good. Who says you failed because you come fourth? Like, everyone else was either better than you or something didn't go quite right. So in my head, it's like, okay, it didn't go right because I was doing 2 weeks in a pool instead of running for the last 2 weeks of the Olympic Games build up. That's not what you want. So I could change it to become that it wasn't all down to me being not good enough. It was down to the fact that I couldn't be good enough because of the injury. So then you go, okay, so then you work out, if you get picked by a tenth of a second into fourth place, and so that person's only a tenth of a second faster than you, but they're not injured, they're not running with a stress fracture, they've had the proper preparation, everyone else in front of you has only beat you by like less than a second, like, you have to be good. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to be quite all right. So I had to change it to that, because I was looking at all of the positives rather than the whole, I was injured, I got a stress fracture, it all went wrong. So it changed my attitude to come back firing in the following year because of that reason. So you have logic is, okay, 8 weeks of getting over the stress fracture. During that 8 weeks, do I just mope around or do I train? So I train the body, which keeps you going. As soon as I came off the stress fracture, I was back running, and then it's just a build up, muscle wasted, all of those things, but you keep that going. And then you have to switch it off from what's gone wrong. I can't control that. I can't change the outcome, but I can make changes to hopefully affect the future.
Did you, at that time when that happened then, what was your mindset going into Atlanta then? Because you knew you had this injury. Where was your head at?
I was told I have to go home at that stage or risk breaking my leg and maybe ruining my career forever. But I felt the risk was big enough to, I might not have got to Olympic Games again. And at 26 and wanting it since I was 14, because that vision came back alive. You don't just give up on something like that. I'd rather take the risk and see what happens, because for me, if only it's too late. So, mindset was disappointment and, emotion from the pain and the disappointment that I wasn't firing on all cylinders, because I was one of the best in the world that year as well.
Did you so after Atlanta, had it made it worse, the injury worse by competing, or you don't know?
I just dealt with it. I was putting plaster as soon as I finished my last race. I mean, I didn't actually just do the 800. I also went around the 1500. I came 11th in the final of the 15, because by then...
I think I remember watching that, going, for fuck's sake.
By then, I was shot. I mean, I just shouldn't have done it, but I kept just thinking, well, I might not ever get to another Olympics, so you might as well run and do the thing. But then actually I came off so much stronger the following year, because I'd done the rehabilitation. When athletes, the trouble with a lot of athletes in particular that don't make it is that when they're injured, the psychological effect on that makes them deteriorate in terms of they're still functioning to train effectively, still sticking with a schedule, still sticking with an AM, PM training session. Even if you have to adjust what it is you do, it's still important that you're still training for the next thing. So I never, ever stopped the the training focus. So I would go, okay, well, next year's World Championships. So let's, rip up now. Let's now think about the next plan. So I'd sit down with my coach and think about the next thing. So even though I'm dealing with the injury, the here and now, I'm also focusing on the future, because the future is what I have to keep my mind assessed on. Problem is, I mean, I came out in that year, I was so strong from all the rehab and the focus that I broke the British record that stood for 12 years in the 1500 meters. I was actually 5 seconds faster than anyone else in the world after that race.
Wow.
And the logical kind of thinking is, you've got to be world champion. I mean, like, who's going to touch you?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, sport doesn't work like that. And that's why I started to have this run of injuries. So I got a niggle on my Achilles tendon. A lot of sports people, athletes, went to Germany to get treatment. So I went to Germany to follow the process of our treatment and came back, flew into Athens, ironically, on the first day of the championships. First day was the women's 1500 meter heat, and in that race I completely ruptured my calf from one side to the other and tore the Achilles. So I was hobbling down the track, and that was it. And then I was literally told then that my career could be over, because it was so bad. Like the tear was, like, the rupture was so bad. And then it goes, same psychology, either crushes you or makes you. I go, well, if I can be 5 seconds faster than anyone else in the world, like, I know I'm a good athlete. So I used to have to take the good things amongst the bad things and just fight again. So then straight away I'm thinking, well, what's next year? European champs and Commonwealth Games. I never made the European champs because it was just too quick. I couldn't get back. I hadn't even started running from August until probably March, April, then next year. And then I managed to do the Commonwealth Games because they were in October. I don't know how I got there, like, in time, but I did, and won a silver medal. So if I'd given up on that year, I'd never have come back with a silver medal. So it is here.
Because it isn't easy to just flip things around, though, is it? Obviously, I talk about that stuff with guys all the time. I always say that they're in training. Like, when I'm coaching people, it's like training. It's like 6 months or however long they work with me, because this stuff you just can't just flip the switch and it's there. No. What's that process been like for you? Is that something you've worked on over the years? Were you always able to sort of go, okay, how can I flip this around and look at it more positively or optimistically?
I suppose there's an element in anyone's life where you've got an element of experience or knowledge behind you before you get to the end, the next stage of who you are and what you're doing. So you have to. I've got a thing. So if anyone, I've got a helicopter coming over my house right now. If anyone can hear that in the podcast, always going to be great editing from Sam.
No, there won't be great editing. They will hear the helicopter.
Oh, go away! Good timing.
It's all right. It's all right. Real life.
That's it. I think so. There's an element of understanding who you are and what you do, and actually that's where purpose comes back into it. So I've spoke a lot about passion and purpose. Some people say, oh yeah, but you could have passion but the outcome might not be like you liked it. I've had that in a lot of things. I'm passionate about something and then the outcome's like, ugh. But the purpose is really critical, because everyone should know why they're going into something in the first place. Otherwise, like, why are you starting something? It's kind of like, do you do it just because somebody else has got an idea, or you've seen an idea and you think, oh, I might give that a go? But it's like, you've got to have sort of an outcome, because how do you drive that plan and that strategy and the structure and the day-to-day grind that anything is that we want to be good at? It's so just, sometimes it's just ongoing. So because of that, and then because those journeys aren't easy, but it's a reflection of what you find hard. So when you find that bit's quite hard for you to capture or to understand or to process, then I think you've got to then go, well, how do you deal with that situation that you're overcoming? Is it that you just can't do it? I can't do it. And then you just sort of give up on yourself, because when most people find one thing hard, they give up on everything, because that one thing in their head they can't get through, they can't find a way of changing their mindset about it or their attitude about it. So they're just fixated on the thing that's not going right for them, as opposed to remembering all the other things that are actually quite good, and then trying to work on that one thing that they can possibly change or get rid of. So when you're flicking the switch, you have a choice. People have a choice in life.
Yeah, say it all
Anything.
the time. Yeah.
People have a choice in life to go ahead, to stop, to give it a go, to don't start, to go yes, to go no. We all actually do have a personal choice, but we make our choices based on exterior situations. So sometimes our choice in our head is because somebody else wants us to, or we think we should, or somebody else has, as opposed to what's driving us for our purpose anyway to do it. So that's why you'll then change, because you want to make a change.
Yeah.
So I could stay on a downer about every injury, every setback that I was going through every year. I'd never have got back the following year. And if my purpose was to win Olympic Games, why am I crying over losing a world champs? I was trying to be world champion. I was trying to be Olympic champion. So it's again, like, where do you set your podium?
Yeah.
You know, and sport, it's, you know, in athletics, I won't speak about sport generally, but in athletics, there's a podium. Okay, some people will only ever set that they want to have a British vest or a national vest. That's their top, because they're probably realistic enough to know that's their standard. Then you're going to get those that will go, I want to get to the final. And at whatever stage of their career, that is a realistic target that could be the best thing ever done. Then once you're already into that mold, you have to go for medals. I mean, it's like medal. It's always medals. So I think there's a different criterion stage for anybody in any part of their life as well.
Yeah. I mean, your mindset now, and you know, we talk about this a lot anyway in general and Clubhouse, and you know, mindset is everything. That's just my opinion, by the way. You know, our mindset, without that, we're lost. You know, if you've not got peace of mind and you haven't got a good mindset, then you'll struggle with most things that you do. But you have struggled in your career. You struggled with depression, I think it was. I can't remember what year it was. And you self-harmed and stuff like that. What kind of was that all around injuries that you were suffering at the time and not being able to deal with that? Was that a culmination of all of that?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of lots of things. You know, when you become a sports person and it becomes all encompassing, then, you know, there's a difficulty in of seeing clear pictures about everything, because it's so sort of like blinkered. And even though, you know, when you got an injury, it's all dealing with the injury. You know, when you're not injured, it's all dealing with the training, it's all dealing with what you're trying to do. It's all very much that. That's why I was saying that it was almost quite healthy, me having an army career at the early side of it, because if I got injured, I had something else to let it out on, something else to think about, something else to kind of make me feel good, instead of only thinking about the bad things of injuries and sport, especially at the level that I was at, you know, always so close but so freaking far, you know. And it was continuously like that. So it's probably a combination of things that you kind of just generally don't talk about, can't talk about, don't know how to talk about. And then, you know, when it comes to sport, you kind of, back then, I mean, especially 2003, no one talked about mental health awareness anyway.
No.
You know, it's almost like anything, if you talked about it, well, I wouldn't even know how to have a conversation. I didn't even know about things like that. You know, when you're in the middle of a breakdown, it's not something that you're expecting when you're at your height of career. I mean, I was getting ready for World Championships in Paris. I was in training camp for a World Championship when I hit my rock bottom, you know. Wow. So in one sense, you're trying to strive to reach the podium. You know, a year before the Olympic Games, you're still trying to be the big athlete and not show any weakness or let anybody know things aren't going right. And then you see other people around you that are still doing really well, and they're just so blinkered and focused. And then you're battling with the fact that you've got another injury. You know, it's like a stab every time. It's just like literally a kick in the teeth. You just think, like, how many more years can I go through or keep fighting? And I lost it, didn't expect it, didn't prepare for it, you know. And I didn't want to be here the next day, simple as that. But in the same sense, that's why your brain is so powerful, because I was getting ready for world champs. So in one side of me, I didn't want to even be here. But the other side, I think, is I've got world championships to run, you know. So I'm now standing, I win a silver medal at those world championships, and no one knew what I was going through.
Yeah.
That's the power of I mean, I think we all got a really powerful mind. It's just that it can become so vulnerable and weak when things really, really get to us. And that's any part of anyone's life.
For sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, you can have that paradox. You know, I've been in dark places in my life and had a paradox, wanting to be this certain person and having my goals and ambitions, but actually not wanting to be here as well. So I totally understand that. Obviously not from an Olympic kind of level, but you know, that's my life. That's my podium.
That's life generally.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's an absolute struggle. You know, winning, you know, so obviously you're in that dark place then, and then winning. Did you enjoy the victory though at that time? Because, you know, you were in this paradoxical situation where, I'm achieving, but.
No, I didn't really enjoy it at all. I was hating life. I just hated everything. You know, it's great standing on a rostrum. I mean, you think like, wow, you know, I could have got that. But in your head, you're thinking of everything you're going through, the emotion that you're feeling, you know, or everything. You're just in a different world, I suppose. But yeah, so no, it wasn't like, not being funny, but athletics wasn't always brilliant. I didn't enjoy it all the time.
No.
A lot of the time I didn't enjoy it, but I wanted it badly enough to stick at it. And that's the want. You know, if people want something bad enough, they stick at it. If something's just getting so on top of them and they just don't have the fire in the belly anyway, they're going to give up.
Yeah. But I just think, you know, about that journey, like obviously it was really hard for you. You know, there was a lot of painful moments.
Well, yeah.
And I just
7 years of injury.
Yeah, like all those years of injuries. You know,
7 years of injury, and I had operations on my stomach, I had glandular fever, tonsillitis. Yeah, I didn't give up on it, and I still medalled at most championships that I went to. So,
but also then, you know, like talking about hitting the podium and not always enjoying it, and then, you know, it's a silly question maybe in a lot of ways, but was it worth it? I know you could say, yeah, easy, like, yeah, I won 2 golds in bloody Athens. No one else has done that. I think there's only one other person that's done that, like for our country. But actually there was a lot of pain and a lot of suffering in that period of time. That's a hell of a chunk of your life.
I know, it's a massive part of my life. I mean, realistically, up until 34 or 35 when I retired, it's been, you know, that's almost been like a life of almost like dictated, kind of structured press, because it's like both being in the army and athletics, they're both on a parallel to that.
Yeah.
You know, rules, regulations, structure, it's like all of that is a massive part of my life. You think that's only 14 years of my life not being in that environment in a sense, or not that much, but say like 20 years of my life not being in that. Since I was 12, it was all regimented. You know, since I went in the army, it was all regimented. Since athletics, it was all regimented. You know, so that's a long time of your life to kind of feel under that intense pressure yourself, because you put it on yourself because you want to do it, but also I was following my talents, you know. So was it worth it? Yeah, absolutely, every minute to cross that line and get gold medal, without a doubt, you know, without a doubt. Because if I had not achieved what I did, for me, my life wouldn't have been worth everything. Like that's how tense it was. Like, I don't know how I would have dealt with life if I hadn't of done what I did.
Wow. Well, that is incredible. That is absolutely incredible, didn't it? Do you, in that moment, like obviously, so you won 2 golds at Athens 2004, like I say, double gold Olympian. I feel like there is only one person that's done that, isn't it? Individual gold
champion. Yeah. So, well, in the 80s, Albert Hill, he won the 1500 and in the 20s, I mean, 1500 and 800. A guy called Albert Hill, and it was more sort of the university. But he's the only other person in Great Britain to ever win 2 gold medals at the same games in track and field.
Yeah, I mean, that's like incredible. I don't think many people know that is just like an absolute incredible feat. Do you think, had you not have done that and then retired, how do you, I mean, it's like a hypothetical question, but you know, it really is, obviously, because you've done it. How do you think you'd have looked back then and just think, God, you know, I don't know, can you even imagine what your life would have been like, or how you'd have felt about all those years of sacrifice and injury? And
no, I wouldn't have dealt with it as much as I had. I mean, obviously I used to think that was my almost destiny, to now on reflection, or back then on reflection of everything that had happened, I used to think, well, maybe that was my destiny then. That's why I went through so much, because I was meant to do this big thing, not just do one thing. You know, if I'd won the gold that I should have won in Sydney, before I only had 6 weeks of running before Sydney Olympics when I won the bronze medal, because I got a freaking tear. You know, if I'd won a gold then, I wouldn't have carried on and for 4 years. No way. So the fact is that everything I went through for me seems to be, you know, I believe in fate, I suppose, but seems to be I went through all that to do what I did, to now do what I do, which is tell about sacrifices and, you know, resilience and all the things that I kind of my narrative. I'd never have that if I didn't do what I did and stuck at what I did. But if I hadn't have done it, I don't know how I would have felt about my life, honestly.
No, and there is that hardship that we go through, our pain and our suffering and our struggle and our achievements. And like you say, it's, if you hadn't done any of that, you might not be doing what you're doing now. And, you know,
well, you know, like anything, gives you a platform.
Yeah, exactly. You know, now you've got this massive platform, and it's amazing. And I'm super conscious of time. As I know you have to go. Look, and I feel like we've barely even gotten started, so we definitely need session 2.
We'll do another one.
I don't care what you say. We are doing session 2 because we've kind of fluffed over it. Really, we haven't got to the, you know, like really talking about Athens and what it really took to get those 2 golds.
Let's leave the big excitement to the next one.
Yes, let's do it. All right, for session 1, Colonel Dame Kelly Holmes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam.
You've been listening to the Real Life Sports Show. I hope you found some value in this free podcast. If you have, then please tell someone else about it. And while you're at it, why not leave me a 5-star review? Also, you can share it on your socials. You'll mostly find me on Instagram at Sam Adams Coach. Use the hashtag #RealLife. You can also check me out at my website, sam-adams.com. If you're interested in my coaching or have any comments at all, then just drop me a DM via Instagram and I will get back to you. I look at all my messages and I reply to every single one of them.